Welcome to Olsem Wanem. I'm Deborah Prentice. In this episode, we look at waste management in Port Moresby. Waste management refers to the collection, transportation, disposal or recycling and monitoring of waste. As population increases, so does the amount of waste we produce. That includes plastic and paper. But the sad reality is, after disposal, no one really cares where it all ends up. Bear in mind that your lifespan would be around 60 years on average, but one plastic bag will be around for the next 1,000 years before it degrades. Yet, this remains invisible to the human eye.
If you've got a politician and he's got a choice of what he wants to be, he's going to say, I want to be the Minister for Sport and Recreation or the Minister for Rugby League or Minister for Horse Racing and so on. He's not going to hold his hand up and say, I want to be the Minister for Garbage. You ask the people in the villages or people in the settlements why they live in Port Moresby, and the answer is always ice cold Coca-Cola. So there's a continual movement from people from the mountains and the villages into the city. They want to come here, they see it as an exciting place to be, but they bring sort of problems with them. They live in settlements where there's no water, no sewage, poor roading, and there's more and more coming the whole time, and the city will never really get on top of that problem. It's the same with every third world country, I think. Now look over here. You see, perhaps you can't see, it's bad colour, lights there for you over there, but this is plastic bottles and litter that's just accumulated from there. There's a watercourse here, so what probably happens is it floods in the hills, brings all the stuff, floats down here and just gets dropped out here when the water flow dies away, and they're flying there. You come down here after we've had a modest rain and this will be blocked, there'll be debris across the road, there'll be mess everywhere. But this is quite common in the settlements. You know, you'll find cars here. There's one up there that's probably in 5 years' time will still be there, that white one.
Oh, mate.
Afternoon. One of the problems is with the Port Moresby sewage system, which is run by Iranu. And it hasn't been really updated the whole time I've been here. The population has probably doubled, maybe at least 3/4 of that has been serviced by some form of reticulation. The new sewage system that the Iranu is putting in was originally going to go all the way up to Canudi, but they couldn't afford it, so it stops here where we've just been, on Tugaba Hill, and goes all that way up that side. So over this side here, there's no plans at all for gathering up sewage and putting it anywhere. So it's going to go on like that for another 20 or 30 years. At least. Yeah, there were sewage lines going out there from the colonial days and just go off there a couple of 100 metres and stop.
littering is coming up again. It's just people's attitude towards how we keep our city clean. Basically, it reflects our attitude back at home. If we do keep our houses clean, then maybe we will bring that out into the city.
Well, the materials, the items that we take out from places that we go and travel, and especially when we come to town, we go back from shops, there are plastics. Filling up our shopping gears, we go back, and these things are been loaded in our plastic, and we go home and we shift them out. There is no proper places to store them.
So basically, all the waste comes from materials, right? So if you're going to buy a material, it came in packaging, so that's waste already. And then the product itself, let's say if I'm going to use chemicals, then you're going to have the container, you're going to have the chemicals after you use the chemicals, okay? So from cradle to grave, from procurement side of it, you have to determine what will you going to do with it after you use the material.
We are going to continue to produce things and throw them away, and actually they all end up in landfill and into the ocean, where they start to impact on the fish, our food chain, all kinds of impacts, and they have huge implications for communicable and non-communicable diseases and so on. So these are things that are definitely already starting to happen in our world.
In a year, 1 trillion plastic bags are produced for human convenience. One plastic will take about 1,000 years to degrade. That means every plastic you've used will still be around even after you're dead, causing harm to the environment. Yet, this remains invisible to the human eye. So the question is, who is to blame? Do we blame the manufacturers, the retailers, the local authorities, or the government, or should we blame ourselves?
Not too many people are aware of the impacts of waste, especially on the environment. And so, people still practice what we call out of sight, out of mind. So you get rid of your waste, problem solved, for you, that is. But then brings a burden to the local council to firstly to clean it up, to get rid of it. It costs money. But then the waste has to be dumped somewhere, and it will go and end up either in the landfill in our case. For industrial countries, it will end up in an incinerator, gets burned, and then returned. So
the industrial waste is a combination of both hazardous and non-hazardous waste. You don't really see this a lot in public. So you'll see them in storage on companies in PNG, waiting for disposal. So all the hazardous stuff, if it can be incinerated, can go to an incinerator. Anywhere in the world, they have what they call waste management hierarchy. How do you manage waste? So the first one is elimination. Can you eliminate the generation of waste? That's the first question. Okay. So if you can eliminate, let's say, for example, That is why we have bans of chemicals in Papua New Guinea and other countries. If you cannot eliminate the generation of the waste, then you go to the second one, which is substitution. Okay. So what do you mean when you say substitution of materials? We have now commercially available lead-free products, mercury products. This is what you mean when you say substitution. Instead of disposing and treatment, applying treatment on lead contaminated products or mercury contaminated products, you use now a substitute. You replace it with the material which is lead-free or mercury-free and some more others. So that's the substitution. If you cannot eliminate, you cannot substitute, then you go to the reduction. The question would be, can we reduce the generation of waste? If you can, then that would be number 3. Now, you cannot eliminate, you cannot substitute for some reasons, you cannot reduce, then you go to the reuse or recycle.
Open dump is mainly characterized by just open tipping. So there's very little control at the site. You have vehicles entering and just dumping wherever they wish to. Maybe some form of control by authorities is when you have equipment like a dozer, just pushing, shoving the freshly deposited waste to the edges. But then a key feature of open dumps is you've got a big number of people living there, and they do most of the work down there. They kind of control operations at the dump.
Me name me Maria, me lo goilala. So Mr. Lo dampe and me must stop lo 80s, me born lo 81. Probably me can pass them stop 1999 and me married. Me married na me got 7 pigini.
From administration point of view, officers in charge would rather be in the office than on site because it is an open dump. Key feature of open dumps would be open burning. So the waste speakers, after going through the waste, whatever is of value to them, whatever they can take out to recycle, they take out, and whatever is remaining, they set on fire. So a key feature of open dump would be continuous burning. The place is often covered in smoke, in dust, and so yeah, you have very little, if not no control at all. Yeah.
Now I'll stop here. Lo lulu blow lo sem. Time also guanta lo damp here. I'll check him. All back se kake blopi. So all car will so miss kage number come trauma or collect kage blopi. Same time or collect your canteen here. Or container or 500 container. It's the only container. And blow logo salem si money or copper or aluminium. Want all metal. And also collecting all na go salem na survive lape. Time all collecting all something go 2 weeks time all go salem. At least also say good money you said 300 kina or 250 kina kind of.
Waste products, the aluminium cans, they're all recycled, and you see them, the latest trend has been to drop them on the street and get cars to run over them, but they've always been gathered up and sold, so that's part of the recycling that's gone on for years, but it's now, because the industry's grown so much, it's much more important. And it's the same with the plastic bottles, the 500ml Coke bottles and the like. They don't get all of them. So if there's 100 Coca-Cola bottles lying around, they'll only pick up 90 and there's a slow growth in residual plastic bottles that is lying around. I can show you some of those.
There's still a lot of scrap metals that is buried in the dump. Old car bodies, roofing iron, anything metal. There's a lot under the landfill. So if you go down to the dump today, there are people who, on the sides, they're still digging this up. And so this, they also sell.
There's always money in rubbish. Anywhere in the world, people make money on trash.
In Papua New Guinea, it will take some time for people to catch up with this. But in the meantime, we do have some policies. We have some policies like the STARS policy of government, which is a sustainable, responsible, sustainable development policy. If you look at that policy, at the core of it is that, yes, we do need to have development, but it's not, we don't want to have the development industrialization in the same way that many other countries have had, the urban problems and so on and so forth. There are choices that Papua New Guineans can make about preserving some of the good practices, cultural practices here. And if we can do that and get that balance, then I think we really have an opportunity and a way of getting out of this endless cycle of use and throwaway societies. Everything ends up in landfill or on the oceans, all starting to impact on our health, on our well-being, and so on.
Papua New Guinea, in terms of waste management, they're still considered a baby compared to other companies. They have regulations, but the implementation still needs to be imposed, and it can start with that.
Well, we have to use every method. Okay, and education is certainly one thing that needs to be really, really encouraged and emphasized to every citizen in the whole planet. But this is one thing that I wanted to share with you, which is that, you know, governments alone cannot do this. Governments can set that kind of enabling environment. They can even put taxes on things like, you know, cans of beer, cans of consumables, etc. They can charge businesses. Some of those costs will be definitely passed on to consumers, so people start to value the things that the packaging and so on, where it's really needed, and then we start to reuse it. Because if it has a value, then people will sort out their rubbish and they will put cans in one side, they will put plastics in another, and so on, paper in another pile. And you know, these things do have value. They can be recycled, they can be reused, and so on. But it needs governments, but it also needs businesses being more responsible. And it needs, of course, consumers also making active choices.
If there is a strict implementation on waste management, on what you cannot dispose on the side of the road that needs to go this way and that way, and people now, what would be the impact on them? So it's a tie-in between the awareness of the public and also the implementers, which is the government. Okay, it will have a great demand for waste companies to do recycling as well. If there is nobody wants to recycle, companies will not build recycling companies. So it has to be a balance between people wanted to recycle, government forcing companies, private and public sectors to recycle. There would be a boom industry on waste management in Papua New Guinea, that's for sure.
Waste is a consumer issue, and I think the biggest impact that we can do on waste is just by educating consumers so they can at least practice good consumption behavior. Things like using disposable cups, plates at parties, you just create waste. You're better off using reusable plates and cups. Maybe we are at war with marketing. The marketing guru wants you to buy more. For us, I mean, we don't want you to stop buying because you need to survive. But our angle is just buy what is necessary. If you can reuse it again. If you don't really need a second vehicle, don't buy it. If you don't need 10 shoes, you don't have to buy 10 shoes. So all these little behavioral changes, consumption behavior, if we can all practice this, then we will go a long way in reducing the amount of waste that we produce. Yeah. For us, basically, we just want to improve Baruni, get a bit more years out of Baruni, but in future we'd like to cap it, maybe look at extracting the methane that will be produced by the remaining waste that will be decomposing by then, and maybe use it as a source of electricity. In terms of the near future, we plan on at least using that area for another 10 years or so, and then we could cap it. Yeah. So obviously that will mean we have to now pursue recycling very aggressively, so we can try as much as possible to reduce the amount of waste going into the landfill. Yeah.
If you have any comment or question on tonight's show, you can contact us on the email address showing on your screen or visit our Facebook page. From the Olsem Wanem team, it's goodbye for now.